Rocco, we'll start with you.
Going Rays.
Just Rays?
Just the Rays. Rays are on it. They're more complete team. The bullpen's going to be the deciding factor.
Give me a number of games, man. Come on.
All right.
Wait, let's do that again. Hold on. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ballnine Roundhouse Divisional Series edition. Today, I want to say hello to America's most beloved sports writer, Kevin Kernan. How's it going, man?
Over nerding.
Beautiful. I love it. We're all, we got all the merch. It's good. Go to the swag shop. We have Mike Scudiero with us today, host of Yapping Yankees. If you haven't heard it, you're missing out. How's it going, Mike? Welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. It's awesome.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for coming on. And last but not least, our ombudsman, Rocco Constantino. How's it going, brother?
How you doing, everybody? Going good.
Good. Have you gotten over the Mets thing yet, or what?
Yeah, the Jets give me more grief than the Mets, so it's a pile of shit that we're up to my armpits. That's been my whole life.
I suggested on Twitter the other day that the Mets and the Jets need to just change their nickname. You can't just get rid of Mets, get rid of Jets, start up.
I'm all for it.
But, you never know. Maybe Steve Cohen will come along with something funky. But I doubt it. Anyway.
The leadoff.
Before we get into the Mets, who aren't even in the postseason, ladies and gentlemen, sorry to rub that in again, Rocco, but like you said, you're used to it. So what are you going to do? I would like to start talking about the divisional series matchups that we have this week. This is going to air Tuesday. Today is Monday, so we're going to leave off a couple things. But we have the Yankees Tampa, which is obviously I busted out like the 20-year-old Yankee hat for this one. I think it's going to be a hell of a series. I mean, you have a lot of storylines. These teams really don't like each other all of a sudden. It's it's a new rivalry, and this is kind of it. Mike, I saw you tweeted today that this is coming to a head, and this is going to be it's going to be an interesting one. So, Mike, I'll start with you on this one. What do you foresee in this one?
Well, I did make the prediction on my podcast yesterday, so I have to stay consistent, which I always do. But I do have the Yankees winning this series. But even though I do have them winning, I have it being a very hard-fought battle along the way. Like I said, these teams do not like each other. They don't. And as far as what happened in the regular season, I consider that to be the past at this point, because when the playoffs start, it's a league of its own at that point. What happened in the past maybe holds a little bit of value, but when it comes to the playoffs, when you play each other there, that's whoever wins in the playoffs, that's who gets the last laugh to me. So I think it'll come to a head with this. I do have the Yankees winning, but I think it's going to be really, really tough. Today's game is very important because you said today's, you acknowledge that it's Monday. If Cole comes out and sets the tone tonight, the offense follows. The main factor is going to be the bats, because we've seen how the Yankees look when the offense isn't hitting. I mean, they're very tough to watch. I mean, we saw it with the inconsistency in gameplay in the last week of the last week of the season, and in that 3-week stretch or so when they were playing really, really bad baseball. So if the bats come out swinging, if they could get to Blake Snell like they have at times in the past, then it could be a really good tone setter for the start of the series. And it's going to be tough because the Rays are really good too. Great starting rotation, great bullpen. A lot of pests in that lineup that the Yankees have a tough time getting out. Ji-Man Choi, Kevin Kiermaier, to name a couple. So it's going to be a tough series. The Yankees against the team who was the best team in the American League this year in this shortened season. It's going to be good. I can't wait for it.
Excellent. I mean, that's all true. And Kevin, I mean, you wrote a couple columns about the Rays and how, fundamentally they are extremely sound and how they do everything right and how their player development is top notch. And even how Kevin Cash actually manages games with a healthy dose of analytics, but not over nerding. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, when you have a guy like Boone and a guy like Cash, how much is their managerial skills going to play into this thing? And, how do you see it going?
Well, first of all, Boone, I got to give Boone credit because he's somehow painting the Yankees as the underdog. And, even though we're going by records here, it's a short season. There's no way in the world the Yankees with that payroll, 10 times whatever the Rays are. And don't double check me on that, Rocco. I was being sarcastic. But
I see him looking down. He's got a.
Yeah, he's got me already. It's all right. I earned it. But it's much more than over-nerding for the Rays. They play the game right. During the regular season, they had 12 different pitchers get saves. And, of course, they get to the playoffs, and another different pitcher got a save. So this is a complete team against the Yankees. The X factor in my mind is Aaron Judge, because Judge set the tone in the first game of the last series, the wild card series, when Bieber throwing a fastball right down the middle. My guess is Judge will not see a fastball like that the rest of this series. They'll move him off the plate. And I think the bad blood between the teams goes back to when Judge was hit, I think in 2018 in the ribs. And that started the whole thing. So I know Judge very well. Even in spring training, we were talking about this. Yankees, the one thing the Yankees have done is come together. The one concern I have is defense. Now they're going to be, they probably won't start Sanchez, game one, whatever. But if they lose game one and then they got to face Glasgow, they could really very quickly be in a huge, huge hole. So the game one defense, the game two defense, all the games defense, Clint Frazier in left field, you're playing in a different park. One final point on this. They're playing in Petco. And when I covered the Padres, Tony Gwynn, whenever he went to a new ballpark, he would take hundreds and hundreds of balls in his outfield position to see how the corner worked, just to see how everything was. My question is this, and, we haven't been able to watch their practices and stuff, but did the Yankees, I hope they did their homework on that ballpark, have a feel for it, and if they play their game, no matter how good the Rays are, I still think their power will take them over the top against the Rays.
I think that's interesting. And that also makes, I wanted to bring up, you say power. Now that, Petco's a notorious pitcher's park. So the Rays do have a few more gap-to-gap hitters, it seems like, on that team than the Yankees do. I mean, of course, the Yankees, Urshela or LeMahieu. I mean, these guys are going to knock one into the gap and, like out a double, possibly a triple. But, is the home run or nothing attack going to work in Petco Park? And I don't know if it is. Rocco, what do you think about that?
It's, I think it's definitely a factor. I mean, a lot of the home runs the Yankees hit are ones that'll, no park could hold them. But I do think it's just an overall factor. And I kind of, even looking at some of the other matchups too, it seems that it's almost the team relying on a homer against a team that can create runs. And it's almost like a whole showdown going on here in almost every series. They say in the postseason, it's defense, it's creating runs, it's bullpens, it's pitching. And, the Rays have an advantage, I think, in all of those areas. I like Cash. I think Cash is doing a very good job of something I always like to see. I mean, I understand the analytics, but he mixes the analytics with common sense. And the example I give is, the Rays went to that 4 outfielder set almost 100 times this year, way more than anybody else in the American League. So you would think that they're heavy on analytics, but you'll see Cash manage with his gut a lot too. When I think Boone is somebody more likely to manage by the spreadsheet, by the front office, being told what to do, and that kind of stuff. So the way I'm looking at it, I'm seeing too many things ticking the Rays advantage there.
That's a good point. And, one thing I wanted to bring up is now Boone still hasn't named a starter for game 2 as of now, as of the time of this recording. I've seen a couple people say maybe they should go with a bullpen game or something like that. Now, I think that's the kiss of death because you've seen plenty of times this season that Yankee starters start getting knocked around and you need to use that bullpen for a while. And you have a guy like Holder or Ottavino who hasn't really been that good lately, who you can't really trust. So if you blow through that bullpen in a bullpen game and then you need them for 6-7 innings in game 3, I don't know. I mean, I don't see that as a positive at all for the Yankees. Just really quickly, who do you guys, if you were Boone or the printer who tells Boone what to do, who would you have start game 2? Mike?
I definitely think some people are going to say it depends on what happens in tonight's game because
Well,
I've
yes.
seen, I've seen people say, oh, if they lose the first game, then they should definitely go with Tanaka, the better arm. You know, everybody loves him in the playoffs. But if they win the first game, then maybe they could go with a J Happ. I happen to agree with you. I don't like bullpen games in the playoffs unless you absolutely have to. There's no other choice. I happen to agree with that, so I'm not going bullpen game if I'm the Yankees. I still probably just go with Tanaka because I don't like to take any chances in a best of five. Even whether Cole and the Yankees win or lose tonight, I want Tanaka out there in game two. I want to see him hungry after what happened in game two in Cleveland because I happen to think, and I said this on Yapping Yankees yesterday, I happen to think that Tanaka is going to be really hungry and want to bounce back after that first game because the conditions that he pitched in the first inning in Cleveland were absolutely ridiculous.
Terrible.
And Major League Baseball coughed that one up big time, deciding to start that game when they did. And I think Tanaka's going to want to go out there and prove himself again and have himself a really good game. And I just don't think you could really play in a best of five, especially not against a team like the Rays. So if I'm the Yankees, whether they win or lose tonight, I'm going with Tanaka, putting the best one out there. And if they win tonight and Tanaka throws a good game, good. You have a 2-0 lead. And if you want to play around, then it's safer to play around with a 2-0 lead than a 1-0 lead. So
Yeah.
I go with Tanaka regardless.
I agree with you. I mean, I think Tanaka's last start was an outlier, like you said. I mean, he came in, the conditions were terrible. Then he had to go sit down for 40 minutes and come back in, and it was just
Yep.
an absolute disaster. And I don't think that's the Tanaka that we know and love. And
No.
And he settled down after that. I mean, that's one great thing about Tanaka. So, Kevin, I would just, I'd like to ask your opinion on that really quickly too. If you're Boone, who are you starting in game two, and then what do you do from there? Assuming Cole, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but assuming Cole gives the team length tonight, which I think is a safe assumption given what we've seen from Garrett Cole.
Yeah, no matter what happens in game one, game two, they got to go with Tanaka. There's no doubt about it. You can't fool around. And what did Tanaka do the other day? He had that terrible start in the terrible weather, but then he adjusted. That's one thing Tanaka can do. He reads. He's pretty good at reading the card. And what I really noticed what Tanaka did against the Indians, he started throwing slower, and slower. And I think that works against these teams because everybody's geared up for the fastball. So Tanaka, I don't worry about. And the one thing I will say, though, if the Rays get Austin Meadows back, and the indications are, he won't start game one. He's not in the lineup for game one, but he could make a difference too because they need that little bit of punch.
Yeah. And
for the Yankees, I meant to say this in the opening, but to me, the most important Yankee is not, even the Judge is huge and what he does, but we know he's been, consistent in a leadership way. But I think you saw it in that last game against the Indians. To me, the most important Yankee is Urshela. The things he's doing at third base, I remember Nettles. He's doing better, as good or better than Nettles. I remember Cleve Boyer. He's doing as good or better than Cleve Boyer. Urshela has been an incredible ball player because he does two things for you that the Yankees don't have. He gives them incredible defense. He wins that battle every time, no matter who he's matched up. That double play turn was still one of the best I've ever seen. And he does other things. He hit the grand slam. But what did he do? 0-2. He shortened up, got the big base hit when the Yankees came back to win it. To me, Urshela is the closest thing to the Yankees have as a complete player. He's so good, and I'm going to give the Rays a compliment here. Urshela is so good, he should be a Ray. And by that, I mean the Rays find a way to get the most out of their players. So that's what I think there.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. And then, sticking with the American League, let's talk a little bit about Oakland and Houston. This is going to be an interesting one. You have the whole Mike Fiers blowing the whistle on the Astros, that whole debacle. You have, Carlos Correa with what he said. You have, Laureano versus, who was the coach again?
Cintron.
Alex Cintron. Yeah. So I mean, you have a lot of weird sub stories going on here. So it should be fun. It's kind of everybody against Houston, but that's nothing new. Rocco, I'm just curious to see what you think about this one. And you see batting averages way down for Houston across the board this year. Is that going to come back to bite them in the end?
It definitely could. I mean, they still have the talent there, and they're doing a good job playing the victim as we all figured they would. Us against them. A lot of teams manufacture that, but you don't have to manufacture that with them. I think this series is going to end up coming down to the bullpen. I think they're pretty evenly matched. Position players, starting rotation, not super impressive to me for either team. But bullpen, the Astros have major problems in their bullpen, and the A's have an argument as they're right up there with the Rays as having the best bullpen in the league. So I think that's what it comes down to. Chris Davis is getting hot, he's a guy that can carry a team. We've seen him get on those streaks. He had a very tough 2 years actually, but he's starting to get hot. And if he's that bat that they can have there, then that losing Chapman isn't going to be as bad. I do worry a little bit about the A's defense without Chapman, but I think in the end, neither pitching staff is going to give them great length, I think. So that bullpen's going to become a major factor.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the Astros just have so many rookies in that bullpen and just unproven guys. Mike, how do you see this going, especially with something like Correa? Do you think that's bulletin board material, what Correa said this week about, what are they going to do now? And now all of a sudden he's the most hated man in baseball. He's playing the fill-in and come on, man.
This might be a good time to mention my tweet that went viral with Astros Twitter. I put out a tweet the other day about how ridiculous I found Carlos Correa's statement to be, because I look at this team now trying to play themselves as the victim after what happened. And I look at Astros Twitter with their deflection seminars based on, people tell them, they remind them about what happened years ago and how that gives them no right to be as arrogant as they still are at times. And it's a very touchy subject with those people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. So as of right now, I mean, they have a bit more to prove as far as this year's concerned. If they make it past the A's, who as we hit on already, losing Chapman was huge. So, but if they move past them, that's a big deal, because again, it's not only because the A's are still a solid team, it's also because of the rivalry that they have. All of these playoff series are against teams that don't like each other. So, but yeah, Carlos Correa's statement was crazy, because they did it. They defeated a Minnesota Twins team who has proven they cannot get past the first round of any postseason year if they had a gun to their head. And I even made a rant video about that last week. Exactly. Made a rant video about that last week, calling the Twins the biggest postseason frauds I've seen in my lifetime, although it's not that long. But I have, in my 13 years as a baseball fan, I've never seen a team that's failed more in the postseason than the Minnesota Twins, right at the start. So they have a lot more work to do before they can even think about talking the way Carlos Correa spoke. Yeah. And I just thought that was an outrageous statement. As far as this series, the Astros, I think when we're talking about losing Chapman for the A's, I think losing Verlander for the Astros is going to be huge when it comes down to it, because that's a huge piece to lose as far as their starting rotation. That makes their rotation somewhat of a threat to now just, okay. So I think that'll end up being a big deal. I expect to see a slugfest between the offenses, because I think that they both have a lot of solid pieces in their lineup. And I happen to agree with Rocco, although both bullpens are definitely shaky. I think it might come back down to that at the end, especially if the starters go out there and they underperform and it falls to the bullpens and the offenses are striking back and forth constantly. It's going to come down to that. So I personally, I'm sure that most Yankee fans would like the Astros to win just so that they can get another crack at them if they defeat the Rays and move on to the ALCS. But I see this being a good series. I see the A's pulling out in the end.
I don't know exactly how I feel about it. If I want to see them win or just watch them lose and laugh.
Yeah.
So,
tough.
It could go either way. I mean, if they can both lose, I'm all right with that. So, Kevin, I wanted to ask about the same series. When Laureano charged the dugout with Alex Cintron, is that going to add a little more fire between the teams, or do you think it's already there because it's a divisional rival and they're, they know each other and they don't like each other? I mean, how do you see this going? What do you think the X factor in this series is going to be?
No, I think it definitely adds fire, and it adds fire to the Oakland side, which I think that's what you need, because the Oakland team has been a little bit like the Twins, not really living up to expectations, always finding a way to lose. Not guarding the line years ago when they had the lead against the Royals and things like that. Things always happen at Philly. So I really think the A's are just going to get rid of the Astros and, easily. It's going to be easily. They're going to move on. And to me, the Yankees Rays is kind of like the ALCS, and because I think whoever wins the Yankees Rays is going to take it to win the ALCS. So the Astros, I think we're all tired of hearing the Astros. I love Dusty Baker. I was there in spring training. I asked the question, Mr. Crane, what do you have to say to the 2017 Yankees? And that's when he gave that ridiculous, dumbass answer of saying it really didn't impact the games. So that's who the Astros are. They've had to live with that all year. But here, I'm a good Catholic boy. Some of you guys might be Catholic. Here's what the Astros have been living with all year. Nobody's really addressed this, and that's what makes Ballnine different. I think they've been living with guilt all year, and they've been transferring it out to other people, and that's what Correa is doing. So I think they know themselves. Once your fellow major leaguers and everybody in baseball comes down on you, you know you did something wrong. So they've been living with that guilt all year. The combination of the crazy season, they lucked out because they weren't getting slaughtered by the fans wherever they went. But I think that guilt, that mountain of guilt is going to collapse on them. And even a bright light like Dusty Baker won't be able to bring them around. So, and Laureano will get the last laugh. The A's will get the last laugh. They'll move on to where they should be. And one last thing. I covered last year the Astros Rays, the 5-game series.
Okay.
That went to 5 games. The 5th game was back, if you remember, in Houston. The Rays had won the previous 2 games, done very well. Talking to an owner of the Rays before the game, he asked me what I think, and I said you're going to lose because they just have a way of finding signs here and everything. And if you remember that first inning, they scored 4 runs off of last now and kind of went on to the win. So that was that team. This is a different team when they're not cheating, and I believe it's all coming down. We're going to be finally rid of the Astros. And even though I called it the revenge tour early in the year when I wrote about the Yankees, because I thought they would get their revenge on the Astros and everybody else this year. I don't think they'll have their shot at the Astros, but I think baseball wants a clean slate. Let's get rid of the Astros and move on to the LCSs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let's not forget that Houston got in with a losing record. So there's that too. Moving on to the National League. Atlanta, Miami. I think we all know where I stand on this one. Miami, they surprised everybody. I know. Look, I'm hoping. I'm still alive, barely, but I'm still alive. How do you see this playing out? Do you think Miami has a shot? Do you think, the Cinderella story's over? Do you think it's going to continue? Or do you think, Miami has something in them? And what are you going to see? And I'll go with Rocco.
Kevin sold me, man. That article was great over the weekend. I am on the Marlins bandwagon now. Again, this is the other series I talked about. The Marlins, the Braves, they do have a little, they have complete players for sure, but they rely on the home run a lot. They were over 100 homers this year as a team. And, Max Fried, Ian Anderson, there's still some question marks there. They had 1 start each. They both did well, but they're not any kind of proven commodity. And again, I think, the Marlins, maybe they have that ability to create some runs. And Sixto Sanchez, Alcantara, those guys are lightning. They're reminiscent of some of, we always see those rookies or young players make a name for themselves in the postseason. Those hard throwing pitchers come in and do it. They just kind of seem like that. So I'm gonna stick with it, man. They're playing the game right. They're hustling. They are running on and off the field like we're taught in Little League. And I think their games will be close. And when it comes down to it, it's whether the Marlins are going to create a run or are the great ability with Freeman and Acuna going to put the team on the back and carry them themselves. I think Soraka being out is a big loss for the Braves.
It is.
The Achilles injury, but let's go. I'm sticking with Marlins Magic. I don't think the favorites are going to win every series, so we'll pick one upset there.
All right, I'll take it. Mike, how about you? What do you think is going to happen in this series?
I'm going to counter with that and say the Braves. And I definitely agree that it's definitely going to come down to whether the Marlins can create runs or not, if they could take advantage of the question marks with the Braves with pitching. And I definitely think Soraka being out is huge. I was actually going to mention that. That is huge for the Braves. But if he was there, it would make a huge difference for them, but he's not. So a lot of it's going to depend on the Braves pitching and the Marlins' ability to create runs. But I do still think that the lineup is going to be too much by Atlanta. I do see them figuring a way to get to Marlins pitching, and I see them defeating them. So I'm going to have to stick with the Braves as the favorites. I'll stick with them.
That's fair, Kevin. I mean, now you wrote about this 2 days ago, yesterday. I mean, so go ahead. I'm just going to let you have it. Go ahead.
There's so many good things to like about the Marlins, and they may be, a little bit ways away yet, but there's a couple little things about this series that interest me. Alcantara, he was traded he came from the Cardinals for Ozuna. So these guys will have a head-to-head, which is nice. That'll be fun to see. Marlins stole 51 bases, I believe, in the regular season, which is second to the Padres, 55 stolen bases. So they need to create that extra base, that extra 90 feet. And that brings us back to Travis d'Arnaud, ex-Met. And d'Arnaud's had a splendid season with the Braves. He did great last year with the Rays when the Mets gave up on him. Yeah. So there's a lot of intriguing little stories in this series as well. And the Marlins, I think they're riding a wave. And I've seen young pitchers before really get their feet under them in the playoffs. And I'll tell you what, I've seen a lot of guys. Sixto Sanchez, he scares me watching him pitch. I mean, he's a presence. That guy's a presence. Yeah. He is, and I thought they did a good job getting him out after 5. And like I point out in the article, I love Manley's comment where he said, I turn on all these games in the playoffs and I see bullpen games. Get your starters in there and let them do. So if those starters do stuff, I just think the Braves kind of got lucky myself. I think they got lucky to face the Reds, who, to me, were not a playoff team, didn't deserve it.
They couldn't hit their way out of a paper bag. Sorry.
Good pitching. They beat Bauer, so they didn't beat Bauer themselves, but they won that game. Yeah. You got to give them credit for finding a way, and I think that's why I call this. This is the finding a way series. Whichever team finds a way to score runs, and to me, Acuna is probably the most talented player in baseball. And this is going to probably drive you guys crazy. But if I had to pick one player right now, I might pick Acuna. That's how good. That's how high I think of him. So if he comes out, if he carries them, they got a shot. But other than that, I'm going to take the long shot and stick with the Marlins.
All right. I like it. Dodgers, Padres. Now, this is the one, aside from, Yankees, Rays, this is the one everybody is talking about, everybody wants to see. You have two powerhouses, a young team against, kind of what the Yankees were a few years ago in the Dodgers, where they just deepest pockets, unlimited resources. Their player development is good. The front office is excellent. They're just bringing in the right guys, making the right moves. And then they added Mookie Betts. I mean, come on. Possibly, the only other guy, maybe, you say Acuna, which I get. Betts is right there with him in my eyes. And Tatis is, making a case to be on that tier if he's not there already. This is going to be an interesting series. I mean, Padres got through without their two best pitchers to here. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think is going to happen in this one? Because I can see this one going either way. We'll do our picks after, but I can just see this going either way. So, Mike, why not?
This one is tough.
I know.
It's a tough one. This is probably the tougher series to predict. I'm gonna have to stick with the Dodgers again, going deep into the playoffs again. I don't see them going all the way, but I see them making it past the Padres. The most entertaining thing about this whole thing has been seeing the fans going at each other, because they've been at each other's throats on social media the last couple of days. Because you got the Dodgers just thinking that the Padres fans are insufferable for talking too much trash after not doing much for years now, and then you have the Padres thinking that the Dodgers fans are so arrogant and this and that. It's really funny. But this is going to be tough. I have the Dodgers winning. The offense and the pitching together, I think, is going to outdo the Padres in experience in the playoffs. I do think the Padres have some firecrackers on their team. I love Fernando Tatis Jr. the guy. I think not having Clevenger is huge. That going against them, that's a big, big deal. That honestly might have swung me to the Padres if he were playing. That's a big thing for me. But I'm going to have to stick with the Dodgers with this one. I had them going deep into the playoffs regardless of their matchup, whether they're going to play the Padres or not. And I'm going to stick with that. I have them moving on past San Diego.
I think that's perfectly fair. Now, Rocco, how about you? I mean, you've watched a lot of these teams. You live out here like me, so.
Yeah, I actually, and I loved watching the Padres this year. And, in doing my research, I was looking for ways to pick the Padres, but I don't, I think the Dodgers are going to take this series here. They're pitching. What the Dodgers did with their pitching staff this year, I don't think got enough attention. I mean, this year we've acknowledged the balls are flying out of the park all over the place, and they still, had a team ERA of 3.02. And it just crept over that 3 mark towards the end of the year. They've pitched great all year. They play good defense. Their roster depth and flexibility is incredible. The things they could do with Kike and Taylor. And I'm also on the intangible side a big believer in that you got to kind of work your way up. Padres were an awesome breakout team this year, but you kind of got to earn your stripes the way the Dodgers have been taking their lumps the past few years. I think this is finally the year the Dodgers break through. They better. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun. It's great to see. I love when there's geographical rivals and fan bases that go at it. I think the Dodgers, their experience, their pitching, their defensive depth is going to be too much.
Gotcha. And Kevin, what do you think? I mean, you've covered the Padres for years. I mean, what do you think about this team compared to the teams you covered? Granted, you're not going to compare Tatis to Gwynn. They're 2 completely different players. But what do you see with this Padres team? I mean, do you think they have a shot against the big bad Dodgers?
Well, I like to look at players and numbers. And 2 things here. First off, these cities really don't like each other. This is kind of like Philly, New York.
Yeah.
But instead of like drinking Yingling, they're drinking white wine spritzers, and things like that. So, that's the way it is out there in SoCal. But the player I want to look at and talk about is Machado. Machado, the best thing Tatis did for Machado was he took the pressure off Machado. Machado's one of those kids, he's not a kid anymore, one of those guys who kind of puts inward pressure on himself, and he thinks he has to carry a team before you know it. He's tremendously talented. Again, we go back to Acuna. Machado's right up there, too. Machado was a Dodger. You saw what happened there. Yeah. So to me, Machado has more to prove and really has a bigger axe to grind in this series. So everybody's expecting Tatis to lead the Padres, but I think if the Padres beat them, and it's going to be tough, the 2 pitchers are coming back, I heard, but who knows how good they're going to be. But if Machado takes it to his old team and gets this team further along, then he changes his whole image. So I'm liking Machado, and this is and the slugging thing too. The Dodgers, 483 slug, right up there on top, I believe. 118 home runs, 95 home runs for the Padres, so they do it too. We're returning to the scene of the crime where Tatis hit the grand slam. That was upset a lot of people when it really was and we said it at the time, I think, in an earlier roundtable. This is going to be the thing that gets the Padres going because now they know. Now they know people are after them. And here's the interesting thing when we talk about ballparks, and that's what makes this year so hard to predict. This is not a home run hitting park either, Globe Life Field, right? So even though both teams rely on the home runs, it's going to be tough there. And but I'm going to Stan Kass is a friend of mine, president of the Dodgers for so long, and I've been busting his chops for years about not making it, not winning it. But I think it's going to be very interesting. Machado could carry the Padres. The Dodgers can finally say, you know what, we're the team. Let's play who we are. Let's get rid of these little guys, and we're going to see. So I'm going to hold on to my pick until we do the big picks.
I think that's fair. Okay, and then now this is where the Joe Blow thing comes in about Angel Hernandez. Actually, wait, no, I should say something about Angel Hernandez first. So edit this too. Okay. So yes, I agree with you, Kevin, and I think both of them are going to be battling our favorite umpire, maybe outside of Joe West, but Angel Hernandez, which brings us to our Joe Blow call.
Hey guys, it's Joe Blow from Mudville here. Playoff baseball rolling along. So far the umps have been pretty good, I think. I mean, they usually suck really bad, but maybe these are the least sucky umpires that rise to the top. Except for now, because Angel Hernandez is doing the Dodgers and Padres. I guess they better get their replay board ready to rock and roll. At least Joe West isn't there to throw somebody out. But how the hell does this guy keep getting work? I don't get it. Like, I suck at my job, I get fired. He gets promoted. I can't figure it out. All right, anyway, don't call me back. I'm not going to answer anyway. See ya. Bye.
All right, so that was Joe Blow from Mudville, ladies and gentlemen. Apparently as big of an Angel Hernandez fan as the rest of us are. Mike, I'm sure you have something to say about Angel Hernandez. So, I mean, everybody does. So take it away.
Yeah, Angel Hernandez is one of many umpires who I don't understand how they have work. I just really don't. A lot of the umpires in baseball now, they make calls that really just make you look at the TV and say, how can someone with two sets of working eyes on their face possibly make that call? And Angel Hernandez is definitely one of them. And not only do they botch the call, but they always defend it hard, and they're like an antagonizing force against the people that argue against them. They almost like bait arguments when they're supposed to be the ones to really suppress them and just go about doing their job and get better. And Angel Hernandez does not do that, nor do many umpires, but he definitely does not. He and many others throughout baseball, I mean, they call strikes like 6 inches below the zone, a foot outside the zone, scraping the batter's box. What I have to say about him is what I have to say about most other umpires. It's just, I don't know how these people have a job with certain calls they make and as frequently as they make them. There has to be, I even said there has to be, what I really want to see in Major League Baseball is there being more accountability with how brutal some of the calls are. There's just not enough accountability on behalf of the league and on behalf of the umpires. I mean, these guys have to go into the highlight reels and see, maybe they go back and see a big call that a team had a major problem with, and just see, my God, that was a brutal call. I got some work to do. Or maybe they've been in the league for so many years and they just say, well, you know what? I've been doing this a long time. I know what I'm doing and whatever. But Angel Hernandez is definitely somebody that really needs to evaluate how he's done his job over the years, because it's been 99% of the time pretty brutal.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, like I say, when Angel Hernandez, it really doesn't matter if he's behind the plate or if he's on first base or wherever the hell he's umpiring. I maintain that Stevie Wonder would make better calls out there. I'm absolutely sure about that. And Rocco, I mean, I'm sure you love Angel Hernandez like the rest of us. Why don't you chime in on this one? How the hell does he still have a job?
I don't know. I mean, umpiring baseball has got to be one of the toughest things you can do with the speed at which things go. But there's a reason why we know his name. There's a reason why he stands out. Major League Baseball has rating systems, the way they assign umpires to major league games. A lot of it is tied into accuracy of calls, but there are other factors as well. I guess he must have scored pretty well in some of those other factors to get himself in there. It's just he needs to, they're starting him at first base, I think. So
yeah,
if I know the rotation right, that'll keep him away from home plate. But I don't know.
Until a possibly deciding game 4, not necessarily.
Well, then he might go to the outfield after it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, maybe they did that on purpose. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. Hopefully, we're not talking about him as some kind of factor in any kind of game. But
I agree. I hope this is the last we have to mention him this postseason. Right. Kevin, I mean, what do you think? Do you think it's because of that lawsuit? Do you think they're just afraid to tell him, like, you can't? Just no, you stink. Just no. Is that part of it?
He's suing MLB, and so this is a lawyer's move across the board. And I'm going to take a different tack. I believe that, and I've spoken to Angel. He lives in the Tampa area. So sometimes the way it works, sometimes in spring training, the guys who live in the area do a lot of the games, so you run into them a lot in spring training. He's always seemed to be a nice guy to me, but I believe
I've heard the same thing. That's why I feel bad. It's like,
yeah, he always makes it about Angel Hernandez, and that's the problem. Yeah. The greatest umpires, what do we always say? He didn't even know he was there, But we always know where Angel is. So my feeling is it's going to be because Angel he's suing MLB. The spotlight is on him. I think he's actually going to do his very best that he's capable of doing, and I think he's actually going to stay out of trouble in this series, just because he wants to prove that he can get a better assignment down the road. And you finally gave me what I wanted, a pretty important playoff series, and now keep giving me assignments. But again, he could turn in Angel Hernandez at any second and botch something. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here.
All right. Hey, man, somebody has to do it. But I mean, it's true. I mean, anyone I know who's ever spoken to Angel Hernandez, he's like a really nice guy. But until he gets in between the lines, and then he's just Angel Hernandez. It's like he puts on like the villain costume or something. So that's going to bring us to our final thoughts segment. And this week in the final thoughts segment, I figure we'll just go around and we'll do our picks. We'll get our postseason picks, and I don't know, see if anybody's right. So who knows? We will start with New York, Tampa Bay. Rocco, we'll start with you. So this week, our final thoughts is just going to be picks. Who is going to win? We'll see who's right, who's wrong, and we'll go from there. So Rocco, New York, Tampa. We'll start with that one.
I'm going to go Rays in 5. They're the better fundamental team. I think Cash is a good X factor. The Rays have been fighting up that Yankee mountain for a while, and they're about to overtake them.
Fair enough, Mike.
Yankees in 4. I do see each game being very close, so I see the Yankees starting off the series on the right tone with Garrett Cole having a nice start and the offense following suit, and the rest of the series going the Yankees' way with maybe only losing one game. I got Yankees in 4.
All right. Kevin?
Yankees in 5, 324 million reasons, paying Cole that kind of money. The Yankees always want to be the scout development team, but in the end, they're always the money team. And the thing is with Cole, he's a determined young man. I think he figured it out that he needs to get back to that rising fastball, and I think he's going to shove, as they say in the business.
Nice, and I agree with you. I think you get what you pay for with Garrett Cole, and I am also taking Yankees in 5 for pretty much the reasons that you guys mentioned, so I'm not going to reiterate it. Oakland, Houston. What do you guys have, Rocco?
I'm going A's there. A's in 4. Again, more complete team. The bullpen's a deciding factor. I just don't think these starters are going to go deep, and it's going to come down to the bullpen, and the A's got them there. Easy.
I agree with you. I actually do. Mike?
I hate to make this simple, but I gave a lot of the same reasons as Rocco before, and I completely agree again. Oakland 4. I do see Houston squeezing out a game here because I don't see them just completely falling apart. I do see them squeezing out a game, but the A's are going to be too much for them. As we established before, between the bullpens, the Astros one is very shaky. It's going to come down to the Athletics bullpen definitely getting the edge there. I may or may not have misspoken before about saying about the bullpens, but yeah, definitely the A's will have the edge because of the bullpen. A's in 4.
All right, Kevin.
Well, if you misspoken, Rocco's going to let you know. That's for
yeah,
sure.
You'll find out. Don't worry.
Find out shortly. But I'm going A's in 3. Get rid of them.
Wow.
Move them on. Take the garbage out.
I like it. Speaking of garbage, I think Oakland does go down in 4. I mean, I think Houston does go down in 4. Sorry, A's fans. Oakland in 4. That's for all the other reasons. I agree with Mike. I think Houston figures out a way to squeak out one game, but I think that's going to be a tight one, and it's just going to be an outlier. So that takes us to Atlanta, Miami. Rocco.
I'm sticking with it. I'm going with the Marlins. I'm going Marlins in 5. Great classic series. I think Acuna really hit the Reds really well, but the Braves, their bats weren't going there in the postseason. In those first two games, I mean, you watched that one game that went extra innings with the Reds, and I mean, they couldn't hit that parade of Reds relievers that came out. So I'm going to say the Braves bats stay cold. Freeman and Acuna, as great as they are, can't do it all. Let's go Marlins.
All right, Mike, how about you?
I have the Braves in 5. I do think the Braves bats find a way to turn it around. They got a lot of established bats in that lineup, of course, Freeman and Acuna just being two of them. I think they figure out a way to turn it around this series, and I do see the Marlins giving a really tough fight, hence why I have it going 5. But I do see the Braves finally getting past the first round, especially after last year.
Oh, what a disaster!
Really, really tough. So. I definitely see them turning it around this year and finally making it past that DS and taking the Marlins in 5.
All right, Kevin, how about you?
Well, I'm good friends with Chip Carey, and for Chip's sake, I'd love to see the Braves move on. But I'm gonna go with the hot hand here. I'm gonna say the Marlins in 5. The bottom feeders, that's their nickname. Ricky Vitali, the broadcaster in Phillies, called them that the first series of the year. They believe. They have pitching. They have defense. And here's one thing I love. The surprise player in this series, I think, will be Birdie. Birdie will make things happen via the stolen base and just playing baseball.
All right. And I'm going Miami in 4, just because why not? Why not? I took them before the season. They're still going. Your guess is as good as mine. Did I think this was going to happen? Absolutely not. But now I'm on the wagon. So let's go Miami. Let's go Marlins. Marlins in 4. Last but not least, Dodgers Padres. The interesting one. Rocco, where are you on this one?
I think Dodgers here. I'd like to, I've enjoyed watching the Padres. I think they are for real. They are going to be a team we're dealing with for a long time. But they got to pay their dues a little bit. Dodgers are veteran. Adding a guy like Mookie Betts to that offense is insane. So I think this is the Dodgers' year. Dodgers in 4.
All right, Mike?
I got Dodgers in 4 as well. I do see the Padres, because of how much talent they do have, definitely winning at least a game. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes 5, but I do have it, me personally, going Dodgers in 4. I just think Kershaw and Walker Buehler, very, very, formidable duo there in the rotation. The offense is going to be too much. The Padres are going to show some fire as they do their young squad. It's exciting, but I do have the Dodgers winning in 4. It's going to be too much for the Padres.
All right, Kevin.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year, so why not Padres? Everything says Dodgers, but I'm going to go with the Padres. I think Machado will have a big series. I think they'll get something from the 2 injured pitchers, even if it means one of the late games, but. The Padres just sometimes when baseball, when you feel it, these guys don't get upset. And one last point, again, it's an over nerding point. So I'll stand up every time I over nerd, but I really meant to mention this earlier, and I apologize. But when the Padres with the Cardinals, right? The pitcher Gallegos, whatever his name is, Rocco, what's his name? Former Yankee, the reliever pitcher.
I'll get you.
Giovanni.
Yeah, him. He's pitching against Tatis, and he twice pulls out the nerd card because he's trying to keep he's trying to get the sequence of signs down, and the very next pitch he gives up a grand slam. So when things like that, when you beat a nerd team with baseball, I'm all for you. So let's go Pods.
All right, that's fair. I mean, I would love nothing more than to see the Padres move on. I just think they've been so much fun. I love they went back to the mustard and brown, and
great.
I mean, I love Petco. But I don't know. I think LA just has. I think it's time for them to go. For them to go back to San Diego. So LA, I do think is going to take it in 4.
And one point, the fans. I'm for the fans in San Diego. Great fans.
Oh, yeah.
They're always screwed. The Chargers screwed them. The fans have been calling for those uniforms for 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
But Tom Werner came in and changed the color scheme. They never went back to anything close to that. So listen to your fans, and you may have success as a team.
I like it. I like it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to bring us to Rocco Constantino, the Ombudsman, who relishes in telling us what we screwed up. And we have to sit here and take it. So, Rocco, take it away, my friend.
All right. A few, we got Rays Yankees payroll. Not exact numbers. The Yanks are 109 million, Rays 28 million. Excellent nugget by Kevin on the Rays having 12 different pitchers to earn a save this year. That tied a major league record with the 1973 Rangers, and all three of the Rangers' top three starting pitchers had saves as well. So they're out there pitching every day and getting saves, like guys like Jim Bibby. Manny Machado's postseason career average is 204. So
there you go.
Kevin's got him on the spot, and this is his time to prove himself. Interesting area, we were wrong. Petco was actually 8th best park to hit home runs in this year. Ahead of Coors Field, ahead of Wrigley Field, ahead of some Camden Yards, some big home run ballparks, very rare. Globe Life was dead last, so that was a good point. And I'll leave it with the Bob Gibson quote. That's going to be very good for this postseason. The two most important things are good friends and a strong bullpen. Thank you, Bob Gibson. We're going to see that over the next week.
Absolutely. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take us to the end of the show. We want to say thank you. Let's enjoy the playoffs. Want to say RIP to Bob Gibson. Baseball world lost an absolute legend. So thank you, Mr. Gibson. And we will catch you next week here on the Roundhouse. Mike, Kevin, Rocco, thank you guys for coming. Adios.